I am so glad you convinced me that the family car should be the Defender 110. It is so beautiful inside, it's so comfortable, and it just feels indestructible.
Yes, it really is. I've been waiting a long time for the new model to come out. The Defender 110, I'm telling you, it's my favorite car of all times. It's my third one. You know, I have stories of going off road. The guy managed the group. He was like, "What are you doing in this beautiful car?" I'm like, "I'm going off road." He's like, "Are you sure? Because you can use one of ours." And then they look like Mad Max cars. I'm like, "No, no, 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 we're going to do this." And he was shocked.
Wow. Well, it's great because the Defender has been reimagined for 21st century adventure, and its unparalleled off road ability, as well as its robust interior, are invaluable whether you're headed towards uncharted territory or just a weekend of exploration. The Defender 110 tackles challenging surroundings with absolute confidence. The SUV conveys strength outside and in, featuring peerless technology like an intuitive driver display and an award-winning infotainment system. That's my favorite part, to keep you connected no matter where the journey takes you. Adventure is unique to everyone, and so is the Defender. Choose from the two-door Defender 90, the four-door Defender 110, or the larger Defender 130 with the ability to seat up to 8 passengers. You'll find uncompromising performance in all three. So pack up and go even further with the Defender 110. Learn more at LandRoverUSA.com/Defender.
These days, we're all investors, trying to be smart with our money despite our worst impulses. But at iShares, we believe that deep down inside of every investor is a better investor. One that's just waiting to be let out. Explore iShares ETFs and insights and let your best investor out. Visit iShares.com for more information.
This isn't your average business podcast, and he's not your average host. This is the James Altucher Show.
Cal Fussman, interviewer of the stars. But we were having a conversation the other day that it made me think a lot. Like, basically, it started off when we were talking about how when we were kids, everybody would watch the same show on a Tuesday night, like let's say Happy Days with the Fonz. And on Wednesday morning on the school bus, everyone would be talking about that show. And I'm not saying Happy Days was so great or this was such a wonderful thing. All the TV shows were pretty horrible. But now there's nothing that connects us culturally. You know what I mean? Like, I can't say to you, hey, I can't even say, did you see the Super Bowl? Because I didn't see it. Did you? You probably saw it.
You know, it's interesting you mentioned that, James, because while I was watching the Super Bowl, I was thinking of our conversation.
Huh. That might be the last thing that everybody watches at the same time, except I don't watch it.
Beyond that, all the commercials were filled with movie stars, or in this case, an athlete like Serena Williams, but like Sylvester Stallone, Ben Affleck, Jennifer Lopez. These were people that we all know. And so you're seeing an attempt to just try to bring everybody together on this day of the year, Super Bowl Sunday. And everybody is understanding that there are fewer and fewer ways to connect, but everybody's seen Rocky. So we can take Sylvester Stallone's face and we can make it the picture of Mount Rushmore, and he could be climbing his own face, and then he can sneeze on himself and fall in the snow, and we all understand what's going on. You do it with an influencer now, maybe 98% of the people wouldn't know who he is.
By the way, this might not be a good or a bad thing. Like, why should Sylvester Stallone and Jennifer Lopez be held up on this pedestal that everyone knows? And like, for instance, there's a YouTuber, I think one of the most popular YouTubers is this guy, Mr. Beast. He's got like 100 million subscribers, but I wouldn't recognize him in the street, for instance. And now that could be a generational thing, but I don't know if I would say of my 5 kids and stepkids,
Mr. Beast.
Yeah. Like, would you recognize Mr. Beast? He's got 133 million people subscribed to this guy.
So basically, one out of every 3 to 4 people. Well, this is worldwide, though, right?
Yeah, worldwide. So, like, but probably a lot of kids that in that generation. Like, it used to be, okay, I understand if like the young generation doesn't know the TV show Laverne and Shirley from the 70s. Okay, I get it. But what we're really saying is that now in the same generation, there's no story that really can link people as a community. There's no water cooler conversation the next day. I imagine they get on the school bus and they go back into their worlds that are all separate. Like, somebody likes Mr. Beast, another person likes this TikTok person, another person likes this Instagram person, another person's playing this game that no one else plays. It might be a good thing because there are more sources of storytelling and knowledge and information, and people can relate to different things. It shouldn't be all the same way that we all look up to Rocky. Everybody can choose their own hero, much more finely grained. But what does this mean in terms of our ability to connect to others?
I think that there's a real damage being done here because we are being disconnected. We have been disconnected, certainly from 2020 until now. There's data that shows that we spend less time with people we're close to now than we did before the pandemic. And, reality is, it used to be that you could go into your office and you knew your office culture. Every office had its own recipe, its own secret sauce. Now, you got people working remotely. Some people may be coming in. I was talking to an intern, college student at Notre Dame, who went to work in an office as an intern, and he was the only person there. Can you imagine, in a big office, he was the only one there. Everybody else was remote. And
What did he do during the day?
he was working, but he certainly could not have felt connected to the job. And I think people are meeting on these Zoom meetings. I get it. I use Zoom all the time. I love it. But it's different from the experience you're going to have when you are looking somebody in the eye, and you mentioned at the water cooler, just in a down moment, or the epiphanies that come up, the ideas that just come from being together, just the things that you would tell somebody that you work next to, that connects us. And that is being lost. And now you've got college students who oftentimes are in their rooms with their cell phones. And so it's leading to a culture of disconnectivity, while at the same time, technology is making us more and more connected.
And it's interesting too, because for health stuff, I've done lots of podcasts about every industry, but I would say one big industry is the anti-aging industry and anti-aging science and neuroscience and all this kind of stuff. And one of maybe the most important factor correlated with longevity, and not just longevity, but less examples of Alzheimer's and dementia and cancer and so on. One of the most important things correlated with that is social connection, in-person social connection and friendships and so on. And what you're kind of saying is that we're losing that a little bit.
Yeah, more than a little bit. And you're absolutely right. I was reading in the Wall Street Journal a story about a study that had been conducted at Harvard, went back like 3 or 4 generations, where they were following, started with males, but then interviewing not only them, but their kids and then their kids' kids, and finding out about happiness and success. And what they learned was that it was these relationships and this connectivity that had the biggest impact on longevity. and happiness. And so, really, just strikes me that one of the biggest things that we can do in this time is connect people, connect ourselves to other people, and even connect ourselves to ourselves.
What do you mean by that?
You know what? I heard this is a crazy, crazy example. I don't know if you should try this, James. And I heard it on a podcast by Mel Robbins. And she says, the most important thing you do in the next year is you wake up every day, you go to brush your teeth, and right before or after you brush your teeth, as a habit, you give yourself a high five in the mirror. Now, she has an hour podcast on this, and it's like completely backed up by science.
So in the mirror, and I'm going to do this. In the mirror, you just say, "Hey, man," but it feels a little fake to me to do that.
Two things are going to happen. One of two things. She said this, and I was listening, and then when I went to do it, one of the things happened. So I said, "Wow, geez, sounds like she's right." But she said, you're either going to look in the mirror and start laughing because it's just what you're saying. You're understanding. Oh, this is kind of preposterous. Give myself a high five in the mirror. But the other alternative is many people look down. They can't, it's hard for them to give themselves a high five. And here was the clincher on this Mel Robbins podcast. She brought her husband on to speak, and he could not look himself in the eyes.
Huh.
And he admitted in the podcast that he didn't see himself in a great way. And here she's looking at him one way. He was seeing himself a completely different way.
Do you think is the idea that if you do this, you'll start to feel better about yourself?
That's what she says, that you're going to feel better about yourself. You're going to be more successful. You're going to feel more connected and more confident. And, we have been hearing these cries of mental health, mental health, mental health in groups from college students. They are feeling that something is off, something is not right.
But is that because conversations about mental health are more acceptable now as opposed to, let's say, 20 years ago, 30 years ago?
Great question. But if you talk to somebody about a time where they tried to commit suicide, sometimes what comes up is they'll say they were looking for somebody to just stop them, somebody to connect with them in some way, to get them to not do what they were thinking of doing. And so there does seem to be an element of feeling disconnected from people who are suffering.
And I do agree. And there's one part of your life, Cal, that I'm very jealous of. I mean, there's probably many parts of your life, but
I can't believe that, James. Not with the life you had. Come on.
No. You used to have breakfast every morning with the same group of guys for how many years?
12 years with Larry King, the CNN broadcaster. And I'm only now realizing what I lost when I lost those breakfasts, because there were often 8 people sitting at the table.
Yeah, and it's not so much that Larry King was there. Like, I'm jealous of the fact that every day you got together with a group of like-minded people. I mean, you were an interviewer, Larry was an interviewer, other people were either Larry's friends from his childhood or other people in the business. And you just kind of shot the shit with them. Like, you just made fun of each other, talked about things, laughed. And in my entire life, I've never had a group of friends like that. Like where, yeah, like I see it in movies where like two or three guys are friends and they're always insulting each other and it's really funny and they pal around and they go through their ups and downs. I've never really had like, I mean, I've had friends, but I've never really had like a group of friends like that, even in college.
What about high school? Because Larry always used to say, "This is all high school." Guys would start to get into arguments with each other, and like one argument could, last a month because everybody egged it on, and so it
No,
became.
I didn't have that in high school. I would say the closest I ever came to that was when every day I would go to a local poker club and play poker. This was in 1999. I had just sold my first company and I was a little depressed. I didn't know what to do. And I just play poker every night. And then you're sitting around with a group of guys and some women who are just making fun of each other and kind of playing a game all night. But at the end of the day, also, it's not like having breakfast. You're trying to take money from each other too. So there's a little bit of it's slightly different than friendship.
But let's back that up because you said you did this right after you sold your company.
Yeah.
Now, did you feel like you were missing a connection when you sold your company? Because often I've heard of people who throw everything into their company and then they sell it, they make a great profit, and then they wake up the next day and it's, what am I going to do?
Yeah, because a lot of that is not even about what you're doing, but what people do you know now? Because y- you're not necessarily friends with. I mean, you might like your employees and be friendly with your employees and customers, but I didn't really like my customers. It's not like I was friends with them. I was friendly with my employees, but I wasn't like friends with them. And sometimes your relationships with the business partners even are too intense in the company building, so they sort of disappear afterwards. And uh, I literally just woke up the next day, I guess, and realized I kind of had no friends. So it was playing poker is
Wow.
almost like a simulation of friendship because you're sitting around a poker table for let's say 8 straight hours. You kind of have to do something. You talk to them a little bit, and you're friendly. You get to know them, and you look forward to seeing them the next night because you also enjoy the game. But it's not like what you had with the Larry with that breakfast where you're all just sort of joking around. Like you said, you get into an argument, but it's not like personal. It's just, you're joking around, you're making fun of each other, you're questioning each other's intelligence. Again, I'm saying these things, I'm describing like a movie scene that I'm thinking of. I've never experienced this. And I regret that.
Well, you've seen the movie Diner,
Yeah. Yeah.
and it's those high school, college age uh, guys.
Or like the
That's
hangover, even. Like the hangover.
that's right.
It's just a
That's
bunch of
right.
guys. All they do is insult each other, make fun. And it doesn't have to be a bunch of guys, it could be a bunch of women too. I've seen,
No, we had women enter, and it was always like a wonderful thing.
yeah. I never like I have not really had like a group of friends like that. And now I
Well,
think it's even harder for kids to have a group of friends like that because a lot of their friends are online, which sort of reminds me of and it's an artificial situation like uh, a poker table or a work situation or whatever.
they're doing it their own way, but I gotta just wonder about it. I don't know if in that last conversation we had, I mentioned the story where I was speaking to a college business class, and afterward, a young woman came running up to me and said, "You gotta hear about this app I'm creating. You just gotta hear this."
Oh my god, I
I
sometimes
said,
hate when people come up to me like that. I'm like, all right, tell me, and for the next 20 minutes, I'm gonna be bored out of my mind.
well, this actually struck me in a very different way. I was actually leaning in because she said, they have these big conferences and people are sitting down at tables. And I have this app that will allow every phone at the table to understand that all these other people are around the table. They're at the same conference. You're all in the same place. And now you can talk to each other. And I said, well, hold on here. Like, couldn't you just turn to the right and say, hey, how you doing? And she said, but they wouldn't do that. And that really opened my eyes to something. If you grow up at a time where you're wearing earbuds and you are accustomed to just blocking off the rest of the world and only listening to what you want to listen to, it's a different game out there. And I just think that is harmful in many ways. One of them is something you brought up, whether we have this huge division in politics because basically we only agree on two choices. We were either going to be like against abortion or for abortion, or gun control, or being able to have guns. And so the only way that we're connecting is either if we are connected to a group like all Philadelphia Eagle fans or Kansas City Chief fans, they have their own tribes, or in this bigger way where I'm red state, I'm blue state.
Yeah.
And I just don't think that that can be good for us.
No, I agree, because on the one hand, there's so many things about that. Like, on the one hand, if you're red versus blue, or if you're blue versus red, not only do you believe I'm blue, so I must be pro-choice, he's red, so he must be pro-life, you have to now agree with the whole menu. So if I'm pro-choice, I should also be pro-mask and against hydroxychloroquine, and I want solar energy to power everything. Like, I have to agree with everything, or I'm a fascist. You can't even be mildly left of center, and same thing for vice versa. And so people now, when they're like really members of their tribes, because maybe that's the only tribes they have now, I don't know. And by the way, none of that stuff, people listening to this might think, oh, well, you have to be serious about climate change. Aren't you serious about climate change? And they'll be really like, my own kids tell me silence is violence. So now if you don't express, you can't even be private about your opinion. If you don't express their opinion, you're against them. If you're not for them, you're against them. And so silence is violence is a common phrase now. And then the flip side is, what if you actually don't care? Like, most issues I actually really don't care about, because you don't have to care about every single issue. I'm not a congressman and I don't want to be one. I care about the ways I help people. I don't care about every way to help people.
I completely get it. It's an interesting thing because I give these workshops at companies because the idea is that if people are working remotely, or many of them, then they are feeling a little distant from the company culture. And for a company to be able to bring everybody into one place and people to get to know each other in a deeper way, it actually allows them to see the people around them with a view that allows them to behave the way you want to behave, to just say, you know what, I don't have to be every issue. I don't have to be just one way. Because what happens, from what I'm told, is when you're working in a company and you're only seeing somebody in a Zoom chat and you don't know them, and they come on and they say something that you don't agree with or that you think is wrong, you automatically start having an opinion about that person. And if the person was working next to you every day and you had conversations with that person every day, you might find out that you really like the person a lot and would gladly tolerate that person's opinions that you might not have liked, just to have that friendship.
Right. Like when you were having these breakfasts every day with a bunch of friends, did you really care if like one day someone said something you disagreed with?
No, in fact, it was quite the opposite. We loved having disagreements because it was the conflict that could drive a breakfast. If you got two people going, then it, you get 15 good minutes out of
Right.
that.
Like now, my experience now is if you express an opinion that other people don't agree with, they won't like you. Like they just will
This
not
is
like you.
this is this is where it's a big problem, if you ask me, because we're not understanding that we can like the people. We just don't like one thing that they said. We don't agree with one thing they said or didn't say. And if we got together and we broke bread together, we would see that we really all get along fine.
But, I'm going to play devil's advocate a little. Again, the segmentation of media and content has allowed for we don't all have to be entertained by the same movie, Rocky or The Godfather or whatever. You could be into your thing, I could be into my thing. There's so much content out there. It's such a pleasure to just explore my interests. Like this Saturday, I spent a couple hours watching videos about different presidential elections throughout history, which is an interest of mine, but might not be an interest of yours. And so you would never watch those videos. And so, yes, we don't have that water cooler conversation the next day, but it was very pleasurable for me. So that's to me the devil's advocate.
I'm with you on that. You can probably remember coming up on the East Coast, you were getting like three major channels and then a couple of local ones.
ABC,
And
CBS, NBC was everybody's channel.
yeah, and then you got WOR,
Channel 9.
Channel 9, and probably Channel 5, you might remember.
Yeah, so Channel 5, Channel 9, Channel 11. Actually, in this order, Channel 5, Channel 11, Channel 9.
There you go. And then after a little while, you got Canal 41 and Canal 47. But the reality is, you could get to watch The Wizard of Oz once a year.
Tops,
There
yeah.
was just no other way.
And that was a big day. Like the Wizard of Oz, this is the Wizard of Oz day. Or the Charlie Brown Christmas special. Big day. If you missed it that
That's
year, you missed it that year.
right. So we had appointment viewing, and that brought us together.
But it
So
also sucked in that I wanted to see it and I missed it.
well, that had its downfall. Look, I'm not saying that the old days were perfect, and these days are hard to understand. All I'm saying is, it seems to me we're being more and more divided, even when we don't want to be.
Did you know several industries are heading for a hiring boom this spring, like e-commerce and healthcare? Surprisingly, hospitality is one of the areas with the most growth. The hospitality industry needs to hire for service positions, managerial positions, and back office operations positions as well. If you need to hire qualified candidates ASAP for any of these industries or any other industry, you need ZipRecruiter. And right now you can try it for free at ziprecruiter.com/James. ZipRecruiter uses its powerful matching technology to find the most qualified candidates for a wide range of roles. ZipRecruiter makes it easy to send promising candidates a personal invite so they're more likely to apply. Plus, ZipRecruiter offers attention-grabbing labels like urgent, training provided, remote, and more that speak to job flexibility. I've talked to CEOs who have used ZipRecruiter, and the reality is, for some reason, it is hard. Like everyone says, oh, there's a recession. Not true. It is hard to find qualified candidates right now, and unemployment is at a 50-year low. So you need to use whatever you can to find qualified people to fill jobs. So let ZipRecruiter keep your team growing strong no matter what the industry. 4 out of 5 employers who post on ZipRecruiter get a quality candidate within the first day. See for yourself. Go to exclusive web address right now, or after you finish listening to this podcast, to try ZipRecruiter for free. That's for free. ZipRecruiter.com/James. I'm the only James that they know. So again, that's ZipRecruiter.com/JAMES, James. ZipRecruiter, the smartest way to hire. You know what I love about fantasy sports is that even though I'm not going to be a great basketball player or a baseball player or a football player or whatever, I feel like I get to participate and make decisions and use my knowledge of these different leagues or these different sports to compete. So it's like I can pick my team or I can pick my favorite players and I could use my knowledge to make predictions and maybe even make money. So with the basketball season here, you can now pick combo projections across football and basketball from the Specials League on Prize Picks. This is a league created specifically for combo projections that include two or more players from different sports or leagues. Want to play alongside some of Prize Picks' favorite players like rapper Meek Mill and comedian Andrew Schultz, who's also been a guest on this podcast, and I've been a guest on his? You can now find community plays under the promos tab of the app to view entries for some of the biggest names in the Prize Picks community each week. Look, Prize Picks even offers a reboot policy so that your entries stay in play even if one of your players gets injured. For football and basketball games, if you have a player who exits the game in the first half and does not return in the second, that player is rebooted. Prize Picks is the only daily fantasy sports platform with an injury insurance policy. What? So I love playing it. I love anywhere where I can use analytical ability with my interests to demonstrate some skill and maybe make some money. And I like the game like aspect. I do wish they had chess as a category on prizepicks.com, but I'll settle for what they've got. Maybe I should make my own fantasy chess league. But in any case, I love Prize Picks. Go to prizepicks.com/James. Use code James for a first deposit match up to $100. That's the easiest $100 you're ever going to make. So that's prizepicks.com/James and use code James. Daily fantasy sports made easy. Let me ask you, you moved from LA to North Carolina recently,
Right.
and in part because the pandemic, just all social conventions broke down. Like these breakfast meetings stopped and your friend passed away and so on. So you figured, okay, you had things to do in North Carolina, family to take care of. You moved to North Carolina. How's that changed your life?
Well, when I moved back to North Carolina, it was to take care of my dad, who was about 90 at the time. And it was the best thing I've ever done. So there are absolutely no regrets there. And yet, on the other coast, I left behind Larry King, and then he passed away. And, we lost the breakfast there. I go back to LA now, and I walk around, and there's no breakfast anymore. Somebody just said, Cal, you ought to just start a podcast, Breakfast with Cal, and just see who shows up.
It's not a bad idea.
See, I may do it, James. I may do it. And maybe have people on from all over the world. They can just show up at a certain time, and let's see what happens.
And so, but I'm just wondering now, particularly since it's linked to health and longevity, and nobody's getting younger, we're all getting a little older. Like, and look, Cal, we've met in person a bunch of times. I've always, like, for instance, I could say to you, "How's your son?" Because I've met him. He's been over my
Right.
apartment, and like when
Right.
when I used to do podcasts in person, people would bring people, and I'd get to know people. Like my friends now are really the people I've met in person on my podcast, and but like right now, how do you hang out with friends? How do you meet friends?
I just spent a few hours having lunch with a guy that I was turned on to in Charlotte. He's been living here for it must be 30 years or so. And he was basically showing me his Charlotte. And it was beautiful. We went and had lunch, and then he took me to the place to have dessert. And then we went to
Then
the
you had sex.
place.
No,
No.
just kidding. Sorry.
And then we took the dessert over to the place where they had the best coffee and tea. And all along the way, this guy was like the mayor. He was just stopping and chatting. It didn't matter if he knew the people or not. He was an older guy. And I think older people realize the importance of that.
I agree. Like the older people who, like, Steve Pressfield, the writer,
I don't know him, no.
but you know who he is.
Yeah.
Yeah. He has breakfast every morning, or he did pre-pandemic. I don't know if he still does it. He has breakfast every morning with a bunch of his friends in Malibu. And, he's an older guy. And I'm just so, again, I'll bring it up, like that sort of thing where you just like know your group. And like this guy knows Charlotte, knows the people around him. It's, I don't know if that's I don't know if eventually, the younger generation, when they get older, they'll start doing that, or if that kind of connection is just over forever. But I know I've missed it somehow, and it's affected me by missing it.
I will guarantee. You know what? Look, you're a comedy guy. You got your own comedy club.
I did. I sold my part of the comedy club, my half of the comedy club, because I wasn't in New York anymore.
Oh, wow.
And that was actually my attempt, just like Poker was, that was my attempt to be able to walk across the street, and it was a bar, plus comedy club. It was my attempt to have my cheers. Like I got to know everybody, and it was fun. But you know what? I wasn't because I was older, maybe I felt a little out of place and not that social, even at my own bar. Like I think I've lost that ability to connect in that way.
Well, I spent like a night with you there, and you look like you were in your proper place, but that was only seeing it from afar. But let me throw this at you.
No, but some nights were better than others. And like, if with you there and other friends there, I would enjoy it more.
Well, thank you. I'm going to throw this at you. What is the difference between being at a table with 4 or 5 other people, somebody says something, and there is an explosion of laughter around the table? Everybody's laughing together. It's almost like chorus in a song, as opposed to one person alone in a room seeing something funny through their cell phone and laughing alone.
Actually, I could tell you the difference. When you're laughing alone, you're usually not laughing. Like if I'm looking at something incredibly funny on YouTube, I'll think to myself, that's really funny. But I usually don't really laugh that loud. I might not laugh at all, even if I think it's like hilariously funny.
Well,
Something about
there you.
in person, there's an extra visceral connection to the person telling the joke.
I'm not a brain scientist, but I will bet that if you have somebody who really understands what's going on in the brain, when you're at that table and you're laughing in conjunction with 4, 5, 6 other people, that different kind of chemicals are coming out and sparking your mind, and it feels great.
Like, let me ask you a question. Like, when was the last time you laughed at something so hard your stomach hurt? You're laughing.
A couple of times I remember laughing at those breakfasts, and it came. It was a little raunchy, so I'm not going to tell this story.
Sure.
But it came in a place. There were a lot of people who worked in comedy who would come by that breakfast table. I don't know if you remember a show Laugh-In. This
Yeah, of
is
course.
back in the day. Okay, now, okay, to your point, back when Laugh-In was on TV, there was only those three major networks. And so roughly at the least 33% of the people were watching it. In this case, they were getting ratings like that first year, and then the president would come on. Like a president was Richard Nixon was on that show. To have the president on a comedy show like that, it got like 6 out of 10 viewers. So
Yeah.
everybody was in the same place and laughing at the same thing, and we understood each other. This is a long way. I don't know if you caught this in the beginning of January. Stanford had come out with a report. They had given a group of people the license to go through the language and look for words that we should not say because it was not good for us. And one of the words was America. They said we shouldn't use that word anymore. If you want to use American, you should say U.S. citizen.
Yeah, no, I did see that. And another word was, you know how like when you're doing a clinical trial on a drug, it
Right.
should be a blind study, like one group, like
Oh, no.
you shouldn't select who the people in the groups are because there might be a bias. So you have to do a blind study. So the scientists are not aware of which person is in which group. You can't use the word blind study anymore on Stanford's campus.
Are people who are blind opposed to that? Do they feel like they're being ridiculed? And if so, okay, I wouldn't say it, but we now have people looking, searching for ways to disconnect us.
Yeah.
Because when when you no longer can say things that you've been saying for decades, and you have to feel a little uncomfortable, like you're walking on eggshells when you speak, that makes you feel disconnected. And
Yeah.
I'm not trying, I don't want to offend anybody in any way.
No, if someone doesn't like blind study, they need to look in their mirror and high five themselves a little bit more. Because like that's like saying, oh, you can't say Star Wars because stars don't really go to war. Like it's like kind of breaking things up in ways and putting them back together in ways that don't make sense. You're just doing it, like you say, to disconnect people rather than connect people. It's Orwellian and the real sense that in George Orwell's 1984, there was thought speak. Like you couldn't say certain things.
Well, imagine, and this is what I'm getting at, and this is why I'm going out of my way to give workshops and speak about connectivity and bringing people together, because there seems to be so much energy in the other direction to push us apart, pull us apart. And I don't see much of a burst of energy to connect us, to make us feel like we're part of something, unless it's some particular silo. That's a different story. But I'm talking about overall. I think we can really feel better about ourselves if we understood, the lives of the people that we were working with, if we understood our neighbors. A lot of people don't know who their neighbors are now.
Yeah, no, and particularly it's an interesting problem in New York City. Like I would have most of the time, oddly, the only time I really got to know my neighbors so well that I even went on a vacation once with some of my neighbors was when I lived in a hotel. So I lived in the Chelsea Hotel for a while, and about half the people lived there, and half the people were just, tourists, guests of the hotel. And so you get to know the people who aren't the guests.
That is remarkable. You had the most friendships in a hotel. It makes sense in a way
Yeah.
because they all came to New York to connect in some way. And even if your reason wasn't to connect, you put yourself in a place where other people wanted to connect.
Yeah, and there was some degree of like-mindedness. Like, there were a lot of artists there, there were a lot of writers there, it had a history of that kind of thing. And you also knew if, it was kind of neat being, there was an in-group, out-group thing. Like, you're not one of the guests, you're one of the permanents, who live there.
Well, that's a little bit like Larry King's table.
Yeah.
You were a permanent fixture at that table. You had a seat at the table. And one of the things that I was able to do was like bring people to the table. And it was
You gave them an experience.
yes, it was a bonanza.
Like this is what I'm wondering about Mel Robbins' technique. And I love the idea of trying to give yourself a high five in the mirror. And I'm going to try it myself, as even though it feels to me a little bit like, your brain knows when you're bullshitting it. And I'm just wondering if there's real science behind this, or if there's a placebo effect, but I want to try it. But I'm wondering if that's the replacement now, because we don't have the breakfast table where you get that kind of support and acknowledgement that you're a real person worthy of breaking bread with. When two countries go to war, and then when two tribes, who are against each other come together, maybe like in a marriage, for instance, they break bread, they have a meal together. And, maybe because we don't have that now, we have to like high five our mirrors in the morning.
I'd never heard of anything like this until early this year. I think she put out the podcast in January. And when I first heard about it, my eyes rolled. Like, come on. But there's all this data. When NBA players in like the exhibition season would give themselves high fives, or you often see them slap hands or touch hands after somebody messed up. It was a way for the teammates to say, it's okay, we're with you, we're behind you. That is what makes better teams. And there's science that explains why. Maybe I got to come in a white smock next time and bring my statistics with me. But we all know you watch the best team in any sport, and you'll see that these people have been playing with each other for a long time. They almost don't even have to talk to each other to know where they're going to be on the field or the court, where to get the ball, because that's just where the other person likes it. They can glance at each other when they see the defense in a certain way. Here it is. Here it is. You know what I'm going to do. I know what you're going to do. And we're going to
Yeah.
score. So I don't think there's any denying that we are better off connected, whether it's at work or whether it's at school or whether it's in our neighborhood. And yet we don't really seem to be making a push to do that. And those who want to either tear us apart or who, for their own reasons.
So what are solutions? Okay,
well,
I'm gonna try the high fiving thing. I quasi made fun of it, but I think it's probably a good idea. And you know what? I need something like that in my life.
I know, and you can email me right after you do it. I know you can email me saying, I looked in the mirror and I laughed. I know you.
No,
You're
I
gonna.
think actually I'm gonna be more like her husband and not be able
No
to look
way.
myself in the eye.
Not a chance. You are going to laugh.
All right.
Because, well, you tell me. Because there's something about the experience, even knowing that you're going to laugh, that you just can't help it.
And
You just,
have you been doing it?
yes.
And what's the effect on you?
I always go to the mirror and smile. And I know that part of it is, you can say bullshitting yourself. I know all that, and yet I look at myself and I see that smile, and it's okay. And it's not much different from when we all got up from the breakfast table, and somebody said, "Carpe diem, seize the day." That's the feeling. You look at yourself, you smile, seize the day.
And do you find that since then you've had more days that were seized?
I'm told. In fact, I know a story of someone, and I think a lot of athletes do this. Maybe people in business. Maybe you've heard of this before. But when they want something, and this could come from Napoleon Hill's book, uh, the idea of writing your goals down and putting it on your bathroom mirror and seeing it in the morning. It's planted there. And then at the end of the day, going back to the bathroom mirror, you're brushing your teeth again, you're looking at it again, and you can say to yourself, did I do everything in this day to help me achieve that goal? And it forces you to look at yourself and see if you did seize the day, or if you wanted the goal in the morning but really didn't do much to get it during the afternoon, and now you got to confront the fact in the evening.
Yeah, no, I think that's good actually. But I'm wondering, like, with you guys saying "seize the day" to each other, and again in a semi-humorous way, as if making the day sort of bigger than it might feel. If that did induce you to seize the day.
I think just saying it, put it in your mind that something great is out there.
Yeah.
And let's not overlook it, which is another part of what I'm trying to get across, because things are in front of us all the time. And we can ask a question, we can step toward them, or we can just walk around them and saying, I don't want to look at anything new. I don't want my day interrupted. Part of seizing the day to me was being open to a possibility that might be manna from heaven. And
That's interesting. So it's kind of almost like a reminder, both the high-fiving in the mirror and you and your friend saying "seize the day" in the morning. It's a reminder that things could be great, that this day could be a great day, a greater than normal day. And like right now, everything's like so small and chopped up, like content, our interactions with each other being almost totally digital. Our dreams and hopes become almost like these micro dreams compared to what they used to be, perhaps. Like the day doesn't feel like it could be great when you're just kind of waking up and then going to your computer and you're silent and you have
wow.
like random Zoom meetings with 100 people on them.
You know what? I never thought of that. Thank you. Thank you for that. Because here's the thing, the great thing about Larry King, basically his dad died when he was 9. He wanted to be a broadcaster and didn't go to college. In New York, to break into broadcasting, you needed experience. He basically was locked out of his dream, and somehow he met somebody who worked at CBS who told him, go down to Miami. They have no unions there. It's a great way to get started. And he got on a bus and showed up with a little money in his pocket. And from that moment, simply by seizing days, he was able to become Mr. Miami and have everybody listen to him every morning as the DJ. And after that, to have somebody notice him and want to have him have a show that went all over America every night from 11 to 5. He got that, had Ted Turner on that show. Ted remembered how good the interview was. And so when Ted was starting CNN, he called up Larry. And now the next thing you know, This guy who never went to college, who couldn't get into broadcasting, who had a friend whose dad owned a hat shop and said, "Come work for me and one day you'll be a foreman. One day you'll get 3 weeks vacation." He just kept going. And the next thing you know, he's one of the most well-known people on the planet. So when he says, "seize the day," it means something.
Right. And he's done it many times.
That's right. And then it wasn't all a nice, easy climb. One of the things I always remember him saying was, every step back is a step forward. The bad shit is coming to all of us. There's no way to get around it. You just have to see it as an opportunity, seize the opportunity, and take it forward.
Oh my gosh, I love these clothes. Mizzen and Main. That's Mizzen and Main. It really is the most comfortable work clothes. Travel clothes. I had to travel this whole week. I'm traveling for a week and a half, and I just took Mizzen and Main clothes with me. Close out 2023 in style with comfortable, breathable, packable, and machine washable pieces from Mizzen and Main. As you wrap up your year-end goals, enjoy a Mizzen and Main dress shirt that you can wear confidently. I like that they've very, very just nice, solid colors. I don't really like to get all fancy in patterns and everything, although they do have some pattern shirts, but very comfortable clothes, stretchable pants. It's just super comfortable, but they look professional and you can wear them casually or professionally. I like some of their flannel shirts or untuck shirts. I love untuck. I never tuck in. So again, whether you're shopping for a special someone or giving yourself the gift you really want, I just buy myself gifts. Mizzen and Main is the perfect gift for any guy who works, travels, and or cares about looking and feeling great. As you could tell by my many photos across the internet, I care about looking fantastic. I'm practically a model. And let's be honest, every guy loves to look great. So again, shop now at mizzenandmain.com and save 20% when you spend $130 or more using promo code James. That's promo code James at Mizzen and Main, Mizzen and Main.com. The future of learning is definitely online. Like, it's such BS that you have to spend $200,000 or take $200,000 in loans and go to some fancy school when it's useless. It doesn't guarantee you a job. Most employers, including me, do not care about degrees or grades or anything like that. We want to care that you love what you're doing, that you know what you're doing, in some cases that you have experience or that you're willing to learn. But people in general love learning and are curious. Like, the key to success is curiosity. And I think masterclass.com is the perfect model for online learning. I'm really happy they're sponsoring this episode. If you're going to give a gift, give the gift of learning. Masterclass makes a meaningful gift this season for you and anyone on your list, because both of you can learn from the best to become your best, from leadership to effective communication to cooking. Let me tell you some of the classes I've taken. I've taken comedy from Steve Martin. I mean, can you believe I can take a class from Steve Martin on comedy, or Judd Apatow, my favorite comedy director? I could take an actual class from him on writing. Wolfgang Puck on cooking. Dan Brown on writing, or Judy Bloom, who's been on this podcast, on writing. By the way, Wolfgang Puck also has been on this podcast. It's such a pleasure. I try to take classes all the time from masterclass.com. And whether you're watching Masterclass on TV or listening in audio mode in the app or on their site, the quality speaks for itself. It's like these Masterclass instructors are your own personal mentors that are going to help you reach the next level. How much would it cost to take one-on-one classes on comedy from Steve Martin or on chess from Gary Kasparov? You just wouldn't be able to do it. But it would cost hundreds of thousands of dollars. With a Masterclass annual membership, it's $10 a month. Memberships start at $120 a year for unlimited access to one-on-one classes with all 180 plus masterclass instructors. So it's not just $120 for one instructor. You get all 180 plus masterclass instructors. Boost your confidence and find practical takeaways you can apply to your life and at work. And if you own a business or are a team leader, use Masterclass to empower and create future-ready employees and leaders. That's the real education in today's world. So this holiday season, you can give one annual membership and get one free at masterclass.com/JAS. JAS, of course, stands for the James Altucher Show. So right now you can get 2 memberships for the price of one at masterclass.com/JAS. Masterclass.com/JAS. Offer terms apply. Like I always used to lean into my bad times knowing, hey, this means a good time's coming because, necessity is going to drive innovation for me, and I'll figure this out and I'll succeed, and it'll be in ways that I don't understand now, but it will happen. But I think now, uh, again, despite the segmentation of culture and the fact that you can watch your YouTube videos and I'll watch my TikTok videos and we'll all be happy and so on, I think we're put into these ghettos where we think there's only one direction. You're either going up or you're going down, and it's hard to grasp that things could be personal and individual and you could rise up despite what all the TikTok videos are doing and Instagram videos. Like, people look at Instagram and YouTube and TikTok and there's evidence of this. They get jealous, or like, why is my friend with that friend? And why wasn't I on this podcast? Or why am I not interviewing this person when this person is? So everything feels like it's going down. And then you have to pick yourself up from that. I don't know if you experienced that. I experienced that.
Yeah, you know what? Somebody told me it was called the doom scroll. You just start scrolling and you just start to feel unhappy.
Yeah.
And to me, there's a big difference. That's what I'm getting at here. There's a big difference between being alone in a room, scrolling, and feeling a little unhappy, and being in a group of 5 people and laughing.
Yeah, because even if you're having like a bad time in your life, right then you're laughing. But if you're having a bad time in your life and you're left alone with Instagram, there's not going to be anything there where suddenly you say, "Man, that was a great scroll. That was seize the day."
No, you know what we always used to say, and that was the other beautiful thing about that breakfast. It could be 8 people at the table. Maybe somebody was a lawyer. Maybe somebody was in real estate. Obviously, Larry was a broadcaster. Somebody was a pharmacist. Somebody was a comedy producer. And if you had a problem, it was like divided up by 8 because everybody took a little piece of it and the comedian made fun of it. If it was a problem in real estate, the real estate guy or woman gave you advice. And so your tensions
You
and
had
your
your team,
pressures.
like what you were saying about the sports team. You had your team.
That's exactly what it was. It was getting that little hand slap that says we're with you.
So what's a solution? And by the way, I have experienced this in the past year. Approximately a year ago, I played in an like real person over the board tournament. It was the Southern Team Championships for chess. So I had a team, about 5 people, and we spent a few days together as a team trying to win this team championship. And it was great. It was like so much fun. And I enjoyed all the meals with them and talking to them. I didn't even really know these people beforehand, but it was so much fun. It was the funnest time I'd had in a long time. And it made a difference.
I started to veer my podcast off to healthcare when COVID started. And I think it was just because it was like the biggest thing
Yeah.
happening. And I, I don't know if I was presumptuous enough to think that I could really change the system, but I just kind of threw myself into it to understand what all the problems were. And I'm coming out of it now, just believing that the best thing that I could do for people is to, in some way, bring them what you just mentioned, to get a group of people together, whether it's in their companies, whether it's in their universities, and have them understand the power in this dynamic, in a, a single high five, and to maybe take a little of what I'm saying out to the world so that they start looking for these connections in groups.
So really the solution, there's no real simple self-help style solution. It's just simply find some people to have breakfast with. Not necessarily every day, maybe one day.
Look, it could start one day a week, it could start one day a month. Once you get those 5 or 6 people laughing, then let's see what happens. Maybe we want to do it again. Maybe you want to see if you could assemble your chess crew that you enjoyed. Maybe, I don't know, maybe you're all in different places, but if not, if you all were in one place, to just have another meal. I believe that if we could do more of this, we would really feel better about ourselves and we could solve a lot of problems. Let's look at it this way. I'm sure you heard about the story of that 6-year-old kid who brought a gun to school and shot his first grade teacher. And there's ample evidence that the teacher knew, that this kid. There were reports that this kid has brought a gun to school, and I think at least 3 times somebody tried to connect with the assistant principal to say, like, we got a problem here, and it went undetected. If you had a bunch of people at that breakfast table who heard about this, there's no way that it would have just gone pushed to the side, because you would have 6 people
Mm.
saying, what's going on here? We got to look into this. And 6 people it would make a different dynamic than one person coming in and said, well, this 6-year-old, he had the gun in his backpack. Then they searched his backpack and somebody said they saw him put it into his coat. And then the talk was, how could somebody hide, like a 6-year-old hide a gun in his coat? That's ridiculous. Well, if 6 people are talking about it, you have a connected group who are going to want to see something done. And so I'm just saying that what little I can do to try to bring people together, whether it's in companies or at universities, I feel really good about it. Because if I can, even if I do it for 5 people, I've changed 5 lives.
Well, Cal, I mean, I think it's really great what you're doing, and I've always appreciated our friendship. We've known each other for a fair amount of time now in James years. Like, I don't know people for too long. So like, yeah, I've known you I think since 2018, perhaps maybe even earlier than that. I forget exact year. But, through COVID and through, I've seen you in LA, I've seen you here, and look, I hope we get together again soon. We're not that far from each other. My kid goes to school in North Carolina, so when I drive up to see her, I could stop by Charlotte, and we should have breakfast.
The next time we see each other, we will have breakfast and we will high five. And by that time, you will have taken the high five test in the mirror. You'll have
Yeah, we're
stories
gonna do it
to
tomorrow
tell.
morning.
There you go. And talking about this, it really makes me think all that time that passed during COVID, I kind of got locked in taking care of my dad. But what would it have taken for me during that time to, in some way, reach out to you? And I didn't do it. I got lost during COVID, and
Me
this
too, though. Maybe a lot of people did. Like I disappeared.
I think in some ways, except for my dad, I disappeared too, and I am coming out now. I'm out in the sunshine and gonna really try to connect with as many of my old friends and form new friends because I realize this is the solution to a lot of problems. And we could have a part two about this where I could explain how this will make a difference in healthcare. I could explain how the whole nature of what's going on in the Ukraine and Russia was set up by the way Zelensky was able to connect with people. It was him right at the start saying, I don't need a lift, I don't need a ride, I need ammo. And
Right.
then getting everybody to understand that what we're doing is connected to you. If we go down, then you're going to be looking at the same problem. And when people can connect like that, it makes a difference. As well as when somebody who is in a situation where maybe they don't have health insurance or they got health insurance that's not good. And I know a guy had problems, testicular torsion, and he goes to a facility that wasn't very good and he's disconnected. Whereas you know the right person, they make the right call, and now you can go in and see the physician who can take care of you. And that connectivity, it just touches us in every single way. I've lived more than half of my life, but just really coming to discover that if you're connected, there's always hope. There's always a solution. If you feel disconnected, man, it's all on you.
Yeah, no, that resonates so much. And well, Cal, thanks for once again coming on the podcast. And listen, seize the day.
All right. You seize the day too, and I really do expect an email after you
Tomorrow morning.
do that high five in the mirror. I want to know what happens.
I'm going to smash the mirror. It's going to be so impactful.
No.
7 years bad luck.
No. You're going to laugh like you're in your comedy club.
I hope so. All right, Cal. Well, thanks so much. And I will see you next
Thank you,
time.
James. Take care. Seize the day, brother.
Seize the day.
Walmart's Black and Unlimited platform is making it easier than ever to support Black-owned brands. When you go to walmart.com/Black and Unlimited, you'll not only get to shop products from Black-owned brands, but also learn about founders like Janelle Stevens of Camille Rose, which specializes in products for naturally curly hair, or the Allison Devon, founder of Teespressa, and there are many more awesome products that you have yet to discover. It's all easy to find with Walmart's Black and Unlimited platform. Join in on celebrating Black brands today and every day at Walmart. We are Black and Unlimited. Visit walmart.com/Black and Unlimited to discover more. That's walmart.com/Black and Unlimited.
The McNugget Buddies are back. But this time, they got a fresh look as part of the new Kerwin Frost box at McDonald's. We're talking all new buddies, dressed head to toe in the freshest fits, all designed by the artist Kerwin Frost. So when you order the Kerwin Frost box with your choice of 10-piece McNuggets or a Big Mac, you'll get one of the flyest McNugget Buddies to go with it. Think you can collect them all? Ba-da-ba-ba-ba. I'm loving it.
At participating McDonald's for a limited time while supplies last.